Hey everyone, this has been like super requested, so today I'll show you how to make a room select, similar to what I have in my own game, Paint Warfare. So let's get started. So first off, I'll show you how to set up the UI and such, so that we can get this working. Let's disable our room manager, and create a new empty game object, and we'll call it lobby. And on it, let's add a new script called room list. And while that creates, let's actually go ahead and create the UI, which we'll need. So, create a new canvas. We'll just give it a camera to our lobby. I'm going to make the background darker. Cool. And let's create the actual list. So for this, let's use, sorry, one sec, a scroll view. We can make this just a bit bigger. Let's make it taller. You can obviously make this a lot nicer, but this will do. It's just a tutorial. Cool. Alright, now in this you want to go to the content and create a button. And we'll call it room item. Let's give it some width. Make it 60. Put it to the top. Now in this content, let's add a vertical layout group. Now this messed up the button width, so just select your button. Make it aligned to the upper center. And let's give it a width of 415. Now let's shift the text to the left a bit. And I'll call it room name, and we'll make a second one that's for the player count. I'll just put some gibberish here, like 10 out of 10 for now. Cool. And the reason we have the vertical layout group is if we add new rooms, it'll spread them out. Let's actually add a content size fitter. And set both of them to preferred size. So that way they're evenly spaced. So if we, as more rooms fill up, it automatically shifts them down, which is nice. If you don't want this to scroll like this, you can obviously change that. Uncheck horizontal here. And for the vertical scroll bar, let's make it permanent. There we go. Cool, that works. Let's delete all these room items, and we'll make it into a prefab. So just drag it into your project, like so. And we're ready to start coding. Alright, up here we'll add a few things. So we'll do using Photon.pun, and then also using Photon the real time. Let's add a new header, and we'll call it UI. We'll add a public transform for our room list parent, and a public game object for our room list item prefab. Cool. And we'll also create a private list of room info. This is a pun class called cached room list, and we'll set this equal to a new list of room info. Let's delete the update method, and we'll change the start method from void to enumerator. Enumerator with no angle brackets, like so. And Unity will automatically call this. It's smart enough to do that. So first we'll just do some precautions. If Photon network dot in room, let's just disconnect. So we'll do Photon network dot leave room, Photon network dot disconnect, and we'll do a yield return wait until, that it's not connected. Photon network dot is connected. Oh, we need to put this in brackets. There we go. And we need to add new here. Sorry about that. So our yield return new wait until open bracket, close bracket, and then this. Cool. And then after all this, we'll call Photon network dot connect using settings. Cool. Now let's add a public override void. We'll call it on connected to master. Cool. And we'll do base dot on connected to master. And then in here we'll call Photon network dot join lobby. Now this is sort of similar to our room manager, but it's quite different actually. So we're gonna make sure to disable this, and we'll enable it programmatically later. Now we'll make a public override void called on room list update, and this will take in a list of room info called room list. And this function is called by Photon, but the problem with this is that it only sends you the changes in the room list. So it sends you the full room list first, and then after that point it only sends you stuff that's changed, which is why we need to account for this, which is a bit of a hassle, but it can be done. So we'll first check if cached room list dot count is smaller or equal to 0. We'll set cached room list equal to the room list. So if this is the first time, the first sync, so we know that the first time that this is called, it sends everything. So if this hasn't been set, we know that this is the first time it's being called, so we're just setting this directly equal to the full room list that we've got. Otherwise, we know that it's just sending us the changes in the room list. So we'll make a for each room in room list, and then we'll make another for loop. For I equals 0, I is smaller than cached room list dot count. And then in here, we'll check if cached room list I dot name is equal to the room dot name, which means that one of the rooms here is the same as one of the rooms that's changed in this room list. Now in here, we're going to make a new list, room info, called new list, and we'll set this equal to cached room list. Now there are a number of changes that could happen to this room that this is sending us. One is that this room no longer exists, so we need to remove it from the list. And the other is that it's just changed like the amount of players or stuff like that. So let's handle both of these cases. First we'll handle if room.removed from list. Room.removed from list. We'll do new list dot remove new list. Okay, so this removes the room. Otherwise, we just know that the room changed somehow. So we'll set new list I equal to new list. Equal to room. And then at the end here, we'll call cached room list equals to new list. Now this is great, and from here we want to update our UI. So let's create a new method, void update UI, and we'll call it at the end of this function here, like so. So the way this is going to work is for each room we're going to instantiate one of these prefabs under this transform. So first let's clear all the children of this transform, so we'll do a for each. Transform room item in room list parent, and we'll just destroy room item dot game object. Now we'll just do a for each. So for each room in our cached room list, we want to instantiate a room list item prefab, and its parent will be room list parent. Cool. Now we are going to set the text of this prefab. So looking at this prefab, we know that the first text is the room name, and the second text is the room players count. So make sure this is in the right order. So the first one is room name, the second one is room count. So we'll do game object cool. We'll do room item dot transform dot get child 0. So this is the first child, which is the room name, dot get component text mesh pro UGUI, and we'll set the text equal to room dot name, and then we'll do the same, and this will be for the second child, or 1, and we'll set this equal to room dot player count plus out of 16, because that's the limit for room sizes in Photon. There we go. This is just the room display UI, so let's see if this works. Let's set this up. So for our prefab, we'll drag this in. For the parents, we'll drag in the content. And just for testing purposes, let's open up a version of our game. So this room should be called, I believe, it should just be called test. So let's see. And it should have 1 player. There we go. Awesome. So now what about actually joining this game? So we need to pass in the info of this room to our room manager for it to join. So in here, in our room manager, let's make a public string called room name to join, and by default we can set this equal to test. Let's copy this, and inside the joiner create room function, instead of this string here, let's paste this variable. Okay. Now in here, let's make a new instance of the room list. So public static room list instance, and let's create an awake function where we make instance equal to this. Okay. And we want to make this button actually join the room. So let's add that functionality. Let me just quit this real quick. So with the button prefab opened, let's create a new script called room item button. And in here, we'll give it a public string room name. And we'll make a public void called on button pressed. And in this room list function, we'll also create a public void called join room by name, where we pass in a string of a name. Okay. And in here, we'll call room list dot instance dot join room by name, and we'll pass in the room name. Cool. Now in the room list function, where we instantiate the room list prefab, or the room item prefab, sorry that is, we'll go room item dot get components room item button the room name, and we'll set this equal to our room name. Cool. In this button prefab, under the button components on click, let's drag in our room item button, and we'll call the on button press method. Make sure to save that. So now let's set up our join room by name method. So what we need to do is enable the room manager and set this room name to join field here, and then we should be set. So let's do that. First, we want to make a reference to our room manager game object. So we'll do public game object room manager game object. I'll do a public room manager for our room manager. So in this function, we'll do room manager, the room name to join, and we'll set this equal to name, and then we'll do room manager game object dot set active true. So let's drag in our room manager into both. Make sure it's disabled and that the lobby is enabled. Now we also need a functionality to create a room. So at the bottom here, still in this canvas, let's create a new button. And we'll put it at the very bottom, I guess. Let's make it green. That's a nice color. And we'll make it called create a room. Oh. There we go. And yeah, let's copy our name screen from our room manager, because this is a good place to start. And we'll make this called create room screen. For the text, we'll make it called pick a room name. And for the button, we'll just rename it to create room. We'll remove this functionality here. We'll add a new one here later. And in this first canvas, we'll call it join game screen. Under the create room button on click, we want to do two things. First, we want to enable the create room screen. And then we want to disable the join room screen, like so. So let's just test that real quick. Yeah, perfect. That works. Yeah, let's add some more functionality for creating a room. So in here, let's add a new function. I'll call it public void change room to create name, and it'll take in a string of room name. And in here, we'll take our room manager, and we'll set the room manager, the room name to join equal to room name. Now the reason this works is because the room manager, if you look here, we're using the join or create room function. So if this room exists, we'll join it, and if it doesn't exist, we'll create that room. So we'll set that equal to room name. Cool. We'll select our input field, and on the on value changed, we'll remove that, and we'll drag in our lobby with our room list, and under dynamic string, we'll pass in change room to create name, and under the create room button for the on click, we'll just enable our room manager and disable our lobby. Okay, so the problem is that we've already connected using the settings and joined a lobby in this room list, so it's not going to work here. We're not going to get these callbacks. So what we should do is copy this, and we can delete these these three functions. And in the join room button pressed, instead of connect using settings, we can call join or create room, like we did earlier, passing in the room name to join. And this is our new room manager script. So I'll build this out and we can test it. Cool, let's create a room and we'll call it John's room. Cool, that room is created. And now, what do we have here? We have John's room. Let's join. Okay, so let's fix that. So this menu isn't actually hiding when we join the room. So what we need to do is in this lobby, at the very end of join room by game, we're gonna do game object set active false, and there you have it. We can join John's room with no problems. Let's reload. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed. This is really cool. I will see you guys in the next one.